Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into this week's video on the Spark Your Speaking channel. Today we are going to talk about 3 ways to handle a mistake gracefully when public speaking. My name is Kathy Lee and I am your public speaking coach. Let's face it, making mistakes while public speaking is inevitable. It can happen to a novice speaker and an expert speaker as well. The key is how you handle these mistakes in a way that doesn't make them worse. How do you do it in a graceful manner that doesn't impact the rest of your speech or your delivery? The good news is there are many ways you can tackle mistakes, but today we'll address 3 simple and effective ways. The first one is taking a pause and taking a breath. Often after a mistake is made, many people panic. They get flustered, probably start speaking faster, maybe stumble more, or they freeze completely and forget what they're about to say. All of these things are totally understandable and totally normal to do. The greatest speakers out there have certainly been in this situation. The best way to handle this is to take a pause and a few breaths to reset. Now this may sound unnatural to a lot of people because they feel that the dead air space and silence will make things more awkward. I mean, it can, but more often than not, silence is better than mumbling and fumbling your way through a recovery. So don't worry about the brief silence. Take that moment in time to regroup yourself and get back on track. The mistake has already been made, so there is no going back. So just focus on the next thing you have to say and move forward. Now, moving forward is important, which is my next tip. Don't dwell on the mistake. It's difficult to ignore the mistake that you've made, but it's important that you at least try, because often when we dwell, on it, it will hinder our focus and chances of finishing off your presentation successfully, because you'll be so distracted by what happened instead of concentrating on what you need to get done. The way I think of a mistake is once I've had time to collect my thoughts and regroup, I almost mentally look at that moment as a restart, and I pretend that I'm starting all over again from scratch. From that moment, I go, okay, we're starting over again, and this is the beginning. So if you can try to compartmentalize your mistake, that's sort of what what I've done and what other experts have done. You'll lower the chances of it impacting the rest of your delivery because you're, in a sense, almost starting all over again in your mind. You know what I mean? So if all else fails, try to think of it that way. I'm restarting again from where I left off, and this is now the start. Before I continue, I want to share with you guys that I created an intense 2.5-hour public speaking program called Ace Your Public Speaking. It's a robust and comprehensive one-stop shop learn when you want to online masterclass that will not only dive deeper into the concepts that I'm teaching you today, but we go through many other tools and concepts and skills that you need to know to excel as a public speaker. This is a very effective course that my students from around the world have taken, and they found much success. So if this is something that you'd like to commit to, all you have to do is head over to my website, sparkyourspeaking.com, to access it. It's called Ace Your Public Speaking, and again, you can go to my website at sparkyourspeaking.com. The last tip I have is to address the mistake only if it makes sense. There are several ways you can address a mistake, but the key is to make it brief and don't bring too much attention to it if you feel that your mistake was big enough. Like, let's say, for instance, something you said was factually incorrect. Then of course I would address that and say, my apologies, that wasn't right, or that slide is wrong, or however you want to address it. Or if you make a really bad fumble, like really bad, then you can just say, pardon me, take a pause first, regroup, address it, and then carry on. Now, if you stumbled and it wasn't really that bad, I personally wouldn't take the time to address it. Like if you tripped over one tiny word, you know what I mean? I definitely wouldn't bring more attention to it. Again, you can just say, pardon me, and carry on, or just correct the stumble and move on and don't even address it. In my opinion, I don't think a small stumble is worth highlighting. A big stumble, maybe, but maybe not a small one. Now, in some cases, you can also use humor to address a mistake, but I wouldn't resort to this option unless you naturally like to tell jokes or if the moment feels right. and the joke doesn't come out as too forced. If you are a natural jokester and your comedic timing is right on there, then yeah, if it feels natural, then definitely do it. But I wouldn't ever suggest that anyone use jokes in their talks or presentation, generally speaking. You know, only because being naturally funny is quite difficult to do, but also it's not necessary, I don't think, for a successful presentation. Some novice speakers feel there is pressure for them to be comedians, that they end up focusing on the wrong thing and their presentation ends up not going the way that they want. Here's an example where I've certainly used humor, but I definitely don't use humor a lot. This one just felt natural. I was hosting an event while very pregnant, and I was experiencing pregnancy brain, which if you don't know what that is, it's a very real thing. Some women, when they are pregnant, have a difficult time focusing or remembering things. During this event, I lost my train of thought and announced the wrong person to come up and speak. Like, it was a pretty big mistake. So it was something that I had to correct. I couldn't just, carry on and ignore it. I corrected myself, and then I threw in the line, "I'm sorry, it's the pregnancy brain." And the audience laughed and the joke was well received. But in this case, the timing was right, the moment was right, and it made sense, and it wasn't forced, and it was something that just came to my mind, so I said it. So only use humor if it makes sense to address a mistake. Well, that's all for today, everyone. Just to recap, 3 ways to handle a mistake gracefully when public speaking are: take a pause and breathe, don't dwell on the mistake, and address the mistake only if it makes sense, and use humor only if it feels natural and it makes sense. Remember to join our public speaking community by hitting the subscribe button below to continue to get weekly public speaking and training videos. Also hit the bell so that you can be notified of new videos. Now, if you like this video and you found it helpful, remember to hit the like button as well and share it so that others can benefit. If you have any questions or topic ideas, feel free to leave a comment below. I love reading all your messages. And if you would like to learn more about the other public speaking programs that I offer, including Ace Your Public Speaking, make sure to check out my website, sparkyourspeaking.com. See you next week.